Hello and welcome back to the Human Design for Marketing podcast with me, Yvette. Now, this episode is going to be something different, which is the answer to the question, how do I learn more about human design? Where shall I go to if I really want to experiment with human design for myself? And I was actually asked this question in a friend of mine's community this week when I ran an introductory class for them. And it got me thinking about how we're all different in terms of how we discover things. And I thought I'd bring this conversation to the podcast. I will start with human design broadly and then go a little bit deeper into human design for marketing at the end, although I will say this. Specific information about human design for marketing is in its infancy. There are plenty of places to learn about human design and business, but human design for marketing is something that is newer to the interwebs, which I really do love because it means that as I share all of this incredible wisdom with you, that it's also creating more resources for the future. And I've said this on episodes in the past, we want to feed the AI system with powerful female voices sharing heart-centered messages, information, and I am here to do just that. So that aside, let's start with, so where did human design even come from? Well, it's an interesting story, and it is very, very woo-woo, if you like, in that it was downloaded, or let's call it transmitted as a voice. Okay, so Ra Uruhu, now that's not his real name. He's a Canadian. I think his real name starts with John. I could be wrong. But Ra is the legend, let's call him. Ra is the legend that received this information through what he described as a voice that for 3 days transmitted this information to him. Now, I know that sounds far-fetched, but we have now had some 50 plus years of working with the human design system, and it has proven over and over and over again to be incredibly valuable, regardless of how it came into our conscious as a society. And that was through Ra. Now, Ra was living on Ibiza at the time, or Ibiza, depending on how you say that. I suspect he was living the good life, a bit of a hippy dippy kind of life, checked out of the pressure of the rat race, and maybe he was doing some of that kind of micro-dosing type thing. Look, I don't know. All I know is that he received the human design system through what he described as a voice. And he spent the following years of his life, and he died, I think it was in 2012, teaching human design, firstly to a select group of trusted peers, and then over time expanding it out into the body of work that we know as the human design system today. Now, this download took place in 1987. What was I in 1987? I was 16. I was in my second last year of high school, only to be fair, it was my last year of high school, not even, because I dropped out halfway through in what is the second last year of high school in Australia. Side note, completely off tangent, but that is how I remember exactly when human design was first brought through into the world. Now, Ra was an incredibly magnetic and spiritual guy. He was a manifester, and he had his primary gate, which, if you're newer to human design, is the sun gate on the personality side of your body graph chart, which is the top right-hand corner when you're looking at your body graph. And if you don't have your body graph, make sure you go down to the show notes and you can pop through to my website and download your custom body graph based on your birth date, time, and place information. And it will also set off a sequence of emails from me explaining more about human design for your type and also human design for marketing. So on the body chart, as I said, it's the sun placement top right-hand corner. This is similar to your birth sign as a sun sign, so your astrology, right? Except in human design, rather than there being 12 different star signs through the year that stay in the sun for around a month, with human design, there are 64 gates and they change every 6 days. Just something for you to keep in mind, but you're still going to be very likely feeling the energy of that gate during your birth week every year, because it's always going to be coming around, just like the Taurian season comes around for me every late April, as does my birthday. Okay, so Ra brings this into the world. It is pre-internet. It is taught in person. It is shared with his group of trusted friends and advisors, which over time expand. And there are there are a number of human design teachers today who worked with Ra directly. And they are really let's call it the parents of the human design system and the custodians. And I know that there can be some sensitivity around how many people are out there teaching this stuff now, yours truly included. However, for the most part, it is believed in the human design community that it's really important to have this wisdom, this magic, this interpretation of the cosmos in the hands of the people, because it is so transformative. It is so powerful, right? And we all, I think, have a level of wanting to understand ourselves better. We spend our lives wanting to truly know ourselves. And human design is the absolute best way that I've ever found to help me do just that. And I've absolutely had my life changed by working with my human design chart and starting to understand more and more about how I am designed for things like influence and impact, how my energy works, how my frequency works. And I want that for you as well. Okay, so I promised you the how. How are we going to do this? Well, the interwebs these days has a load of information for you. And the first thing I would always suggest, as I mentioned earlier, is simply printing off your body graph chart. You can do this, as I said, on my website, yvettemaya.com/chart, and go directly in and do that for free. But there are so many different pieces of software out there that I use, because every teacher, I have come to realize, has a very slightly different slant. And I believe it is through the synthesis, at least for me, the synthesis of the information, that at a personal level, we get the most depth and richness. And so I use a number of different websites. The chart that's on my website is amazing because it goes a little bit more deeply into some of the finer elements, like the 4 arrows, and it has your Chiron. That's really detailed, I know, but other places that I go to for this information, the very first one I was introduced to is the My Body Graph website. I still use that all the time. I think it is a habit because there are other systems that I use as well that have exactly the same info, but the body chart system I tend to just jump into. It has voice recordings if you invest into hearing more about certain elements of your chart. So the free version is pretty shallow, but you can start to learn more if you pay or invest into learning more about yourself little bit by little bit, or you can subscribe at a higher level and unlock a lot more of that information. Another website I use a lot is Genetic Matrix. I love this one because it also has more information about the transits and having a look at your chart different ways. Like you can have a look at your chart just based on the personality side, which is taken from the exact time you were born, which is the right-hand side, the gates on the right. Or you can have a look at your chart just based on the left-hand side of your chart, which is your design chart. And that's based on 3 months before you were born and is your more or less conscious gifts and personality and traits that sit at a kind of body wisdom level. It's known as the body side of the chart. So genetic matrix is another amazing resource. Again, you're going to get your basic chart and with a subscription, access to much more information. And it is a really robust website, Genetic Matrix, far more robust, in my opinion, than the body, my body graph chart is or has access to. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody jump into my Instagram DM and challenge me, but that's what I believe to be true. There is also a website that I love called 64 Keys. Now, this one appears to be created out of maybe Germany. It's European for sure. So I find that it has a lot more business intelligence in there, and that's why I love it so much. So there's a whole nother system in human design called BG5, which is a completely, let's call it a side system that has different language that is specific to career and business. And yeah, it is based on the exact same information. And so if you learn both of them, you can interpret the differences really simply. But the 64 Keys website has more of that BG5 information in it. It also has some fun things, which maybe Genetic Matrix has as well, but it has some fun things in there, like it has the transits for yourself. So what's going on at the cosmic level each day with the human design chart, and you can have a look at your own chart overlaid with the transit chart to see what that influence or impact of the current transits are having on your energy, because they do work together. The kind of more energetic, broad, let's say that the setting, like the vibration for everybody, combined with your personal chart, they do come together and shift how you feel on a day-to-day basis. So that's something that I really love to take a look at. What else is in there? It also has other functions. Now, with this system, I've upgraded to quite a high level because I was fascinated with some of the charts around things like looking at how you work in teams and as a family, and actually overlaying different charts. So if you subscribe at quite a high level, you can input everybody in your family, or a small family of up to 5, all their charts together and see the dynamics of the group. Like, how does your energy work as a family or as a team? And then there's a whole nother system in there called the Penta, which is for a much larger team in a business setting as well. So yeah, very deeply nerdy, but I do really enjoy the 64 Keys website. Then there is an app I use called Humanify. And the reason I like the Humanify app is it actually is my go-to for personal use for transits information, because it's in my hand, it's super easy, it populates and updates continually, and it also spells out for you the changes based on the transits and the interplay with your own body graph. Okay, I know I've gone diving into the deep end, but I wanted to just give you a feel for the resources, firstly from a chart perspective. Now, when you first see your chart, it's going to make very little sense to you. So the next step is to have a look at the basic information that is provided to you around your type, your strategy, and your authority. This is where you start to explore. And I would suggest you stick with this part of your chart for weeks even, because human design is, yes, it's about learning, but ultimately it's about experimenting with what you're learning about yourself and having that experience of, how does this feel for me? Is this true for me? Is this adding value to my life? Okay. So starting with type, strategy, and authority. Use this information, to go deep diving into the Google engine and discover the content that is out there freely available for you to learn about these parts of your chart. Simples, right? There's so many teachers out there on YouTube. There's hundreds of amazing websites that have got information for you to explore. The next thing would be your profile numbers. I believe that the profile lines are the most important aspect when it comes to marketing. I really find working with profile lines with my clients and understanding my lines has been the most transformational part of human design so far for me. I'm going to call it marketing, because it's about the role or the costume of your purpose, which means it's around how other people receive your energy and therefore how you're influencing them or able to influence them at the highest frequency based on your individual design. So that's the World Wide Web. And of course, every part of your chart you can explore more about online. But I know you want more. I know you're like, okay, that sounds very good, but a bit confusing, a bit hard. So if you want to do the old school thing, that is investing in a book or two, I have a few that I absolutely love and use on a daily basis. Now, I think that you're most likely to want to buy a book if you are somebody who is so into this, you're considering doing readings yourself, because they're pretty heavy. They're pretty heavy. The one that I turn to for human design kind of traditional, that was co-authored or at least endorsed by Ra, is called The Definitive Book of Human Design, The Science of Differentiation. It is written by Linda Burnell, who's the director of the International Human Design School through to this day, I believe, along with Ra Uru Hu. So you can trust that this particular book is from the source, that is the human, Ra, who downloaded this information, received the information from the voice, okay? And it is really well laid out, but it's research, right? I'm a line one. I love my research. I've read the whole thing, but I use it a lot. It's probably the thing I use the most, more so than the internet at this point. Then other books that I have that I love. The second big book I have is by a woman by the name of Karen Curry Parker. Now, Karen was in Ra's set, so she knew him and learned from him personally. And what I really appreciate about Karen is that she's a female and she has a much more metaphysical, spiritual tone to the way she talks about human design. She's created her own system, which is called quantum human design. Now, the book I own is called The Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design by Karen. And I use this one and read this one a lot as well. It goes through all of the profile lines and into every single gate, all the incarnation crosses, the circuitry, all of that good stuff. And it has different names for things, especially around the incarnation crosses and the gates, that I resonate with, perhaps more so than traditional human design. And so for me, it's an input into how I interpret the information for my clients, along with Ra's work. And then the third resource that I use just as much as those two is the Gene Keys, which, if you listen to my episode 133 with Jess Bubico, you would have heard a bit about. Now, the Gene Keys is a system that was created by Richard Rudd, And the book is The Gene Keys, Embracing Your Higher Purpose. And gene keys are a little bit different, okay? So they're like a sister tool, a spin-off to human design. And Richard also was in Ra's inner circle, but they, I believe, had a falling out. And I think this happened in the early 2000s, maybe 2005, at which point Richard leaned into the I Ching, which is just one of the 5 ancient systems, or 4 ancient plus quantum physics, which is more modern. So the I Ching, he went deep into the I Ching, which is the gates essentially. And for his body of work, he calls each gate a gene key. So there are 64 gene keys. What I really, really love about the gene keys is that they have a beautiful language to them, and they go into the shadow frequency of the gene key, along with how we may get triggered in that shadow. It's like, I think the words are, I've got the book here, so I'm just going to make sure I get this right. Our repressive nature or our reactive nature. So it's going to tell you what the shadow of the frequency is, and then give you a little bit of insight to help you understand that when you're in the shadow of this gift, are you someone who is more likely to come at that from a reactive place or a repressive place? Then, of course, it really and very beautifully depicts the gift of each of the gene keys. And this is where we want to spend most of our time in life. Like 90% of our lives, we want to be leaning into the gifts of those gates or gene keys, whatever you want to call them. And then also it includes acidic state. Now, acidic state is beyond the gift and into like an all-knowing, conscious, higher potential type space. How I think about this, and I've been taught this as well, is that acidic state is not something that you strive for. It's something that it just happens. It just is present when you spend the majority of your time in the gift of those gates or gene keys. You get into this state, and it's a beautiful place to be. So they are the 3 key books that I use. Now, fun fact, when I first started diving into the gene keys, I went onto Amazon and I bought 3 different gene keys books, thinking they were all different. No, I bought the same book 3 times that had been released with a slightly different title and cover a few years apart. So don't do that. Be careful that you're buying a unique edition. There is one, actually, I think I bought 4 Gene Keys books. And one of them is called The 64 Material Ways. And that is a whole nother way of Richard personally contemplating the Gene Keys. Now, before I move on, I will say with the Gene Keys that if you go onto the Gene Keys website, oh my God, you have to do this. Go onto the Gene Keys website and pop in your details for a free chart, and it's going to come up with the summaries of the 4 placements that are at the top of your chart. So the top 2 on the right-hand side, which is your sun and your earth on the conscious level, and then the top 2 on your left-hand side, which are the sun and the earth at the body or design level. These 4 make up the incarnation cross. They also make up what Richard refers to as the activation sequence in the Gene Keys. And they are very, very informative and influential in your overarching energetic makeup. But go and do this, because I don't think there's been one person whose Gene Keys from the free Gene Keys report on the website I've pulled off that hasn't 100% felt the truth of the Gene Keys and been blown away by just how much they resonate with it. So go and do that. It's fun. Now, once you've done all of this kind of let's call it low ticket exploring. Maybe you're doing everything for free and it's all online research. Maybe you buy a book and it's going to cost you $30, $50, something like that. And you're still like hungry for more. Well, you absolutely do at that point want to go and get your chart interpreted by somebody who is qualified to read charts. That would be your next step. That could be me if you want to work with somebody who works with business owners that is interested in their marketing. I absolutely offer that. You can book that in on my website. It is called a Human Design for Marketing reading. Or you can essentially start following a lot of people in this space until you find someone that you absolutely resonate with and you're excited to learn from. Okay. Beyond that, there are enormous amounts of resources out there. Now, for me, if you've been a listener of this podcast for some time now, even before it was renamed as the Human Design for Marketing podcast, you will know that my journey into human design was a little different. I met an amazing woman by the name of Emma Dunwoody when I was doing doTERRA essential oils as a network marketing business. She came into a class that I was running. We connected. She is a master coach, a life coach. She was interested in learning about doTERRA as a business, and she was deep into her human design learning, experimentation, and bringing it into her coaching business. This was back in 2018. So I didn't have like a gradual introduction into human design at all. I had a like ton of bricks, as in someone incredibly passionate who met me, who talked all about it and how life-changing human design was, and I immediately booked a reading. So I hadn't done anything online. I just went and I invested in a 90-minute reading with her, and it was so enlightening that it actually helped give me the confidence to step into life as an entrepreneur. And I have worked with Emma many times over the last 5 years. She's a good friend of mine. I've worked with her as a one-on-one coach. I've been in her mastermind, which is where I trained to interpret charts. And again, Emma is just one of a number, like quite a number these days, of highly regarded, high-profile human design teachers. Okay, so for me, Emma is right. She's, a similar vintage as me. We connect on a personal level. I love her take on things. I appreciate her experience in behavioral coaching and what that adds to her interpretation of human design. And she has a membership. So her membership is the kind of place that is amazing to hang out if you're like, I want to learn so much more about this and really nerd out on human design and surround myself with other people doing that as well. If you want to take an even bigger step and become somebody that also uses human design with your clients, her membership, it's called HDX, is a phenomenal place for you to be. I will leave you a link in the show notes that has my affiliate link on there, of course, in case you want to explore that. Now, I'm pretty sure it's open to join at any time. She does big launches as well throughout the year where there are masterclasses and ways for you to get to know her better as well. Additionally, just an FYI, you're going to find that I'm popping up in her community as well, because part of my journey is becoming more invited into her community as a leader and a teacher in the human design for marketing space. So even this month, I am teaching in the membership. So if you hurry up and join, you're going to see me live on the inside. Okay, I think that is it for this episode. I hope this has been truly valuable. If you want to explore more about human design for marketing specifically, again, do the Googling thing. I am not the only person out in the world talking about human design and marketing. You will find there are others. And again, you want to make sure that you're feeling the energy of the human that you decide to invest in going deeper with, whether that is simply doing a reading, like a one-on-one reading, or taking another step and learning from them in a program or a course or a membership or something like that. That really is it for this episode. There are a ton of resources on my Instagram, in my Human Design for Marketing Facebook group, even on my website, with free things as well. Even just doing your chart is going to give you access, as I said, to an email sequence that goes into a bit more depth around a couple of elements of your chart and how marketing intersects with human design as well. That was a lot of talking. I trust you found this episode enlightening and that you feel more armed with resources and tools and places to go to keep deepening your experience with human design. I highly recommend that you take more steps because it has been so transformative, so life-changing for me, for many, many, many of my clients. I'm looking forward to being back in your ears again soon. Bye for now.